Good morning, everyone. I think now good morning has been replaced by it's been ages since we've seen each other, right? So that's the first thing we said to each other. Yeah, it's been ages. Welcome to Martech Vibe Festival. It's truly a pleasure to see people face to face. I don't know if you saw or heard, we had one full session yesterday with about 170 people. So it's such an amazing experience to actually physically meet people, speak to them, because we are so used to seeing those small windows and saying that you're on mute. So it's really been a pleasure welcoming you all. My name is Ravi Rahman. I'm the editorial director for Martech Vibe. Just to give you a small brief context, Martech Vibe was started about 3 years back, purely as a niche media brand to talk about marketing technology. Uh, it also we also launched the event which you are witnessing now. So what we want to do today is actually give you a crash course of 1.5 days of conference into about 40 minutes. So the idea is that how has the pandemic affected you marketers, the kind of challenges it has put forth, and we're looking at about 5 key verticals or 5 key challenges that you've gone through. Each of your tables has a theme, and obviously you know what to do. If one table which has 2 people, they want to shift to this so that we are all equally matched, you're more than welcome. I think let's do that so that it's almost 4 per table. At this stage, I want to welcome and thank Epsilon, our partners for this session and our gracious hosts. So if you want to come in and say a few words, set the agenda, and let's take it from there.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for making it to the breakfast. Just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Saira Mehdi. I'm the sales director at Epsilon, managing Middle East and Africa. We have identified 4 or 5 top priority topics today, right, with customer experience. Just to give you a little background about Epsilon without sounding too salesy, we've been in the experience business for about 50 years. We've evolved with marketing needs, right, from push marketing days today to pull marketing days. 2 things that we absolutely pride in is helping brands achieve the level of customer obsession that you all are looking for as marketeers. Number 2, how we can help you with managing first-party data. Of course, I don't want to make this a theoretical session for sure, but I want to leave you with 3 very simple questions, but maybe that those trigger difficult responses, right? First, what first-party data do I currently have, and how am I organizing it? It seems like a simple question, but if you really dig the details around what do I have, what do I need, where do I get it from, it's the most challenging responses because a lot of people struggle with personalization, especially because they don't have the right insight and the right level of data. Second, am I still reliant on third-party data? And if yes, do I have a plan in place to phase it out by the end of the year? There was a research done in June 2021, and unfortunately, 80% of marketers indicated that they are still relying either heavily or moderately on third-party data. Unfortunately, this being the case, the good news is about 61.9% marketers already have a plan in place, and I hope the majority of you are already moving in that direction. Wherever you are, we at Epsilon are happy to come with you, join hands, and take you across the line because this is what we thrive in. On a funny note, if anyone's watched the movie Bruce Almighty, where Jim Carrey says, and that's the way the cookie crumbles, you will see a lot of placards with crumbled cookies. But today, I invite you to join hands with me and move away from the crumbled cookie world to having a delicious piece of first-party data cake. And literally, we have brought you a cake which will be served outside during coffee. Please enjoy the cake, and I'm here to facilitate the discussion and any questions that you may have. Thank you, welcome, bon appetit, and I'll see you around.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I realize that it's morning and we need to keep it light, but at the same time, the reason we come together under the Marketing Society's umbrella is to bring insights and inspire each other. Thank you for Epsilon. Thank you for Martech Vibe for making this available to us so we can have this conversation. My name is Khalid Ismail. I'm the chairman of the Marketing Society, and that's exactly what we do, is we bring people together when we can, especially now after the pandemic, face to face as much as we possibly can, because obviously that's when the eyeball meets the other eyeball. That's when the sparks happen, and that's when knowledge sharing is happening. We talked about data, data, data. That's exactly what right now all of us are trying to scramble, trying to understand how I can make sure that my money is spent as effectively as possible with the right people as possible. And I guess some of the conversations we'll have today and this morning as well is to discuss some of the challenges which the pandemic kind of fast-tracked for all of us. What has changed? And I think, as mentioned earlier by Ravi, we do have different topics, pillars on your table that has 3 or 4 questions on it. So we're going to leave you with some time to reflect and have a chat on your table. And then at the end of it, we're going to ask each table to reflect on the 3 top learnings from that table. So usually, we would ask someone to be the lead person on that table. So between you, you can nominate someone to be the lead person to speak on behalf of that table at the end. And I'll come back to you with Ravi and the team to just kind of capture some of those thoughts. And hearing each other is part of the learning as well. So we'll leave you with 20 minutes for you to have that conversation, and one person from your table can share your thoughts at the end, top 3 things. Okay? Leave it with you. 5 minutes, guys. 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are in the last few minutes. So if you have nominated your speakers per table, we can come to the tables one by one. We need 3 key points from each table on the subject that we've been assigned. Thank you. Anali.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay. So the our topic is social media and content, and I'm going to just take you through a couple of new trends that are emerging, and a couple of thoughts that we had that became really important and relevant during the pandemic. So the first point that we want to talk about during pandemic and how social media played a really important role. The main point that we want to make here is that social media's job really during the pandemic and going forward is that it can't be seen as an opportunistic platform. So what was very important and need of the hour was that the communication was empathetic, was sensitive to what was going on. So the content definitely needed to uh, relate to be relatable to what was going on around. So it was not something that you could push any product or service or sales or talk about yourself. So that was one trend that started merging, and I think brands which jumped onto that trend did really well, and at least the consumers appreciate it, especially if you had a purpose in what you were doing. So it wasn't only about your own product and sales, and more so about the community. So that was one trend. The second trend, I think, that we saw was the influencer marketing on social media started growing a lot as well. There were a lot of influencers who came onto the foray. There were celebrities, there were in various categories, there were a lot of influencers. And the key point to note is that you need to ensure if you're bringing on an influencer for your brand, there is some sort of synergy with the influencer and the product or the brand that they're associating with. It can't be somebody who's just because they have a big following that that you take them onto your brand, but there is no association and no relevance, because you can't take a beauty star and get them to talk about banking, for example, or somebody who's into some different cosmetics and maybe then start getting them to talk about travel. So that was also what was happening, just jumping onto the bandwagon with just numbers. So it's not just numbers of people and followers, but relevance to the purpose of what you're trying to see. So that was one trend that started merging when people started jumping onto the influencer bandwagon. And the other third one that we want to talk about is TikTok and how it grew so exponentially, 3 billion users within 2 to 3 years of its coming in. It's interesting because it made everybody a content creator. During the pandemic, everybody was sitting at home. Every little skill you had, you wanted to put it out there. Everybody was dancing, everybody. So it gave every user an opportunity to come there and be seen and show their talent. And that made life easy for a lot of brands as well, because now you don't need the experts anymore. It was so much easier to get content, user-generated content, efficient, big volumes, and much cheaper. So that was the other trend that we noticed, and it was something I think we, as a bank, I'm from Rack Bank, we jumped onto that bandwagon. Banks, you'd say, what do you want to talk about? But there was interesting ways to talk about money and how to save money while you're using money, and how you're cool with it as well, so the audience can relate to it as well. So that was one trend that was happening as well, which we took advantage of. Then I'm stuck.
I think great insights. Any questions to this table? So I have one, which
Sure.
is, did you see social media becoming a customer service channel? Because obviously a lot of people, or a lot of customers started reaching out to you on
Yes,
Twitter.
yes.
Was that becoming a two-way kind of a communication channel?
It's more than a service. I think it became a little bit of a complaint channel, if I may, because a lot of people, if they didn't get through to call centers or contact centers, they did come to get noticed on social media.
And they found it much more
Unfortunately,
effective.
that's the channel and the medium. Everybody responds much quicker.
100%,
But
yeah.
it does happen. So on Twitter and especially on Facebook as well, we got a lot, and LinkedIn, you did get a lot of complaints for services, for sure.
All right, we move on to the next table. Whatever. We need some more Red Bull. Use a mic. I would suggest use a mic. Red Bull does give you wings, but you still need it back.
Is that better? Okay, so I'll try to do justice to the conversation, and I think we hardly scratched the surface, but if I narrow it down to 3 points we've been talking about. One is customer experience management, TXM, versus customer expectations. Obviously, there's been a huge acceleration in terms of what you expect. Your groceries were supposed to be delivered a day later. Now it's now, or 20 minutes, you can fill your entire fridge. So I think the expectation of how you manage the experience are definitely a lot higher than before, right? And you expect the friction to be less, you expect everything to be right now. So I think this is something that we as marketeers need to kind of level up to. Come with that is actually maybe almost in paradox is the data and the privacy regulation. To which extent actually there's an awareness of how data is being captured or should not be captured. And the negative, it's pretty much a negative narrative out there, right? So whether the campaign from Apple, which obviously took a very strong stand on privacy, which made every app ask you whether they want to track you or not, and that's actually a very negative way to put it almost. With the GDPR, obviously, you're having to opt in to services that you maybe signed up for in another country even. So there's been a lot of negative awareness on capturing data, and for us as marketeers, we see the value of data in offering a better service. But then again, you have consumers who are getting more and more afraid of sharing this information or sharing any data or allowing you to capture it. And the third point was the importance of data and how much of data is actually wasted or is actually wasted. So back to your point at the beginning is how do we structure our information, the data that we have, how do we have some kind of data strategy around it, and how useful that is actually as well. Because kind of the data that we captured a few weeks ago might not be useful actually in a few weeks from now. That's pretty much where we scratch the surface. Thank you.
Any questions? All right, we move on.
Valid points. Thank you for sharing.
No, she's an affected party, yes.
Right. Morning, everyone. So we were discussing data and taking on from what Ali was saying. Yes, it's getting a lot more expensive to acquire data. it's getting a lot more complicated to actually start using the data as well. And that's probably where the biggest challenge lies. So biggest takeaway is that, are we personalizing just for the heck of it? That is something that as marketers, we all need to start answering now. And how can we actually start using personalization in a lot more meaning way? Secondly, in terms of acquiring data, when you're acquiring first-party data, is it actually that usable? When it comes to third-party data, is it getting more sophisticated? There's a debate there as well, in terms of understanding how worthwhile is it for you to actually start accumulating data. And thirdly, and more importantly, would be, what is the third point?
Data accountable for, okay, I'll take over. I think the biggest point for us that was that when you acquire data and you organize data and you're facing challenges in activating it properly in the wider ecosystem, etc. And we talked about the point of personalization, not just being for the sake of it. What is that metric that you're using data for? Or if I was to use an analogy saying, if data is the new oil, you need to build a car to be able to use that oil. Once you build the car, you realize, oh, you need to go somewhere with that car. Otherwise, you spent money, just for the sake of it, and you haven't gone anywhere. The car's probably standing in your porch looking pretty, but you haven't done anything with it. So till you really know what you're going to do with that data and come up with the right metric and hold that data accountable for either driving your top line or having a bottom line impact, I think is just a useless conversation at the end of the day.
Those are great points. Any questions? In fact, I have one. We missed out zero-party data. So we did talk about first party, second party, and third party. So how have you looked at zero-party data, and how has that come into play when you talk about personalization? And this is open to anyone.
We were trying to avoid buzzwords, but what is zero-party data?
Zero-party data is the data that's provided by the customer even before you ask for it. So what kind of newsletters would you want? That's zero-party data. That's not asked for it. The customer's already given you that information. So it's almost preemptive data collection. It's predictive data collection.
Yeah,
They
I
have
think
to find, if you have right content, you will get those.
So look, I think Ravi has a point. So if you look at search data, for example, if you mine search data on Amazon, you could call it zero-party data. In fact, there was a very interesting term that we used for that kind of data utilization called zero moment of truth.
Exactly. You
know where to meet that demand before it comes to you, right? And I think that's what you're referring to, if I'm not mistaken. And so call it zero-party data. We still call it third-party data because you're mining some platforms, either Google or Amazon's data, for example, and it plays a massive role. And what Karan was saying, in most cases, in a lot of the ROI generating pieces of data are still third-party data sets. Because at the end of the day,
the action points are still third-party.
Absolutely. So Amazons of the world, Googles of the world, Facebooks of the world haven't built, multi-billion-dollar worth data centers for nothing. They know the value of that, and they know that data drives ROI for you. And before Unilevers or landmarks of the world or Jumeirahs of the world get on to building those kinds of infrastructure, it'll be 100 years at least, right? So you should chase first-party data, but with a sense of meaning and not just for the sake of it.
That's it.
Learn something new. Zero-party data.
New buzzword.
So our topics were a blend of redefining loyalty and personalization, the two tables that came together. We had lots of interesting discussions around the table, didn't quite get to answering the questions, but just in summary, I think we found that during the pandemic, it was really trying to understand how our customers' lives, how it has impacted our customers' lives. So whether it's from a retail perspective and different channels that they're using, not going into actual physical stores, but e-stores, how to reach them different days of the week. So instead of it being over weekends where you've got all the in-store traffic, it was much more from Baby Shop, for example, mothers who were then online during the week and doing their purchasing. From a travel perspective, people just obviously weren't traveling. So how personalization became almost by market, and how that market was reacting to the pandemic and how their travel corridors were opening up again. So personalization was more about being empathetic with the situation they were in, and that built up, pent up desire to carry on traveling and to travel through digital means. And I think that's really where we saw the big changes. And then coming out of that, during that time, we also spent, I think everyone around the table spent a lot of time looking at their first party data, the zero party data as well, and trying to understand how they can use that coming out of the pandemic to give them competitive advantage, to make sure that they were on the right foot and speaking in the right way to the right customers at the right time.
Great. Any questions for this table? Personalization is the new gold standard for all the marketers. So that's about it. All right. Thank you so much for these insights. Again, I think we've had an amazing session, short but very sweet session, very productive. Thank you so much for the Marketing Society. Thank you so much, Khalid, for co-hosting this. Thank you so much for Epsilon. You want to say some last notes?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think a lot of great insights. I mean, to your point, it is about meeting customer expectations, but within the GDPR, all the regulations, right? So connecting one-on-one is important. And to this table's point, you don't want to do it just for the heck of it. But it is important to do it nevertheless, because I think brands need to now strategize in such a way that they are reaching from a company to a person. And not just by name, but really understanding and via empathy. And I think that's an important point. The bigger question is, how do we do it? And, the day we can answer this, I think we're all successful marketeers and we'd have a successful event. Thank you so much. And please enjoy your breakfast.
Just final words. Thank you again for bringing these brains together. As you can appreciate, we will continue doing face-to-face activities and events. There's one coming up on the 22nd in Abu Dhabi, which is a thought to let you know that Abu Dhabi is slowly taking shape with our Marketing Society, let's call it hub, or another group of people that we can bring to the table. And the 28th of September, we have an event as well. Again, talking about data and precision. So you'll hear about that very shortly. 20th of October, we're going to be together at Marketing Mania with Jitex. So lots of events coming up. Put them on your calendars. I'm sure you receive them on your email. I wish you a fantastic day. And I wish the event here a great day as well, because I was to have a great event after this. Where's the guy? You have.